The first thing I want to mention is that there's a repository on Blackboard. So for your main assignment, I want you to work in that repository. For your main assignment, you create a website for Lancashire Student Services. And there's a repository. You can get the link from GitHub. And for your main assignment, all your files should go into that repository. You can create as many folders as you want. You can create as many files as you want. If you want to give me documentation, you can also put it into the repository. So basically whatever makes up your submission for the main assignment should be in that repository. There shouldn't be any files outside that repository. And the other thing, which is obvious, but I'm just going to spell it out, the files on your server have to be the same as the files in the repository. Yeah. The repository makes it easy for me to look at your code, makes it easy for me to check when you did your work, but the files need to be on the server so that we can see it actually works. Because the server can speak PHP. On the server, on PIM server 2, we can run the code. In the repository, we can't run the code. We can only look at the source code. So please accept the repository from the link. And for your main assignment, work in there. The other thing is, if you haven't done so already, please book the Viva with me. For the main assignment. You book a 30-minute slot. You come to my office. We'll sit in front of my computer. There'll be 2 keyboards, one for you, one for me. There'll be 2 mice, one for you, one for me. And you're basically showing me the system you've created for the main assignment. And this way we can make sure that I don't overlook anything. You create a system with lots of links. There might be a hidden link somewhere. There might be, you might have something like, if you click at the picture, if you click at the name of the company where the placement is, the salary pops up. I'm just making it up as an example. And I wouldn't know about that. So you show me your code. That way you can make sure I'm not overlooking anything. And I can make sure that you're confident enough with the system that I can assume it's 100% your own work. So please book a Viva, a 30-minute slot. You can book it anytime you want. You can book it today. You can book it next week. If you haven't booked a Viva after next Monday, I'll assign a slot for you. I'm saying that because in the past, last year something stupid happened, that one of the students went back to China and didn't make an appointment. Kind of was unaware that there's an assignment for this module. And of course that caused some sort of problems. I can't test you if you're not here. So book your Viva with me today, or anytime this week, or next week. In the workshop, for example, if you haven't booked a Viva by next Monday, I'll just pick a time and a date for you. So it's easier if you pick your own date and time. But so that we make sure that nobody is missing this important step of making an appointment, please do it soon. And it's a first, I've never done it before. But otherwise I'll just pick a time and slot for you if you don't pick one. Okay. Any questions about what we did last week? Last class, I should say, not last week. Last week was Easter Monday. So last class, the last class before Easter. Any questions about the things we did? No. So we are looking at databases. We are looking at basically retrieving records from the database, which is exactly the kind of thing you'll have to do for the main assignment. And today we're going to look at how to ask the database for specific records. And today we're going to look at how to put new records into the database, which again is the kind of stuff you'll need for the main assignment. And the usual rule applies that I set for this module. And those rules I set for this module are that you are allowed to use any of the code I put on my handouts. It's perfectly fine for you to copy and paste code from my handouts. They are on Blackboard. It's obviously easier to copy and paste from the Blackboard PDF than if you type it all in. On the other hand, I think there were some issues when students copy and paste from the PDF. Sometimes the quotes seem to go wrong, or the spaces seem to go wrong. So sometimes, if it doesn't work, it might be worth typing it in, because depending on which system you use, but sometimes the PDF seems to present a white space that is actually a different kind of character, and PHP gets confused. Anyway, I get a bit off topic here. The point is you can use my code for your assignment. That's perfectly fine. If you use any other code that's not from my assignment, I usually expect to see comments in the code so that I know that you know what the code does, so that I know that you understand the code. Yeah, PHP.net is a great resource, but if you copy a function from PHP.net, we want to be sure that you understand how it actually works. So every time you use something that's not from my handouts, it's good if you put some comments in. Yeah, just start with a // and it's much easier then for all of us to make sure what does this line of code do, and do you actually 100% know what's going on. Lots of C's left here. Okay, so last time we looked at retrieving a single record. So we just said, we want the record with this and that ID, and we showed that record on the screen. It was books, but of course for the assignment it could be placement opportunities. It would be the same kind of system, just the columns, the fields in the table would have different names. Last time we also looked at retrieving all the records in the table, which basically involved a loop. We get the records back from the database, and then we have a loop that basically creates each row one after the other. And this time, some more information here. So we want to add records to our table. What do? We use, let me use this laser pointer function here. Yeah. Okay, what do? We use this insert syntax. Yeah. In the past we retrieved records from the database. We used select. For example, select star from books, or for your main assignment it could be select star from placements. This time we want to insert information into the database. So the command is insert. So we need to write insert into, then the name of the table, then whatever fields, fields i.e. columns, and the values we want to insert. Now, we don't have to specify the fields, the columns. If we don't specify the fields and the columns, we can just list the values one by one, and they will be put in exactly that order, which means you need to make sure the values you hand over to the database are the correct number of values in the correct order. Normally it's advisable you basically spell out which field and which value. So the first field you list here will be used to store the first value you list. The second field you store here will be used to store the second value, and so on. I'll show you an example. Yeah. Insert into items. So the table is called items. And there's a field, i.e. column, called item name, item manufacturer, item description, item price. Yeah. And now, because this is the first field, this is the first value, this value will be stored in this field. The second value will be stored in the second field. The third value will be stored in the third field. The fourth value will be stored in the fourth field. All we need to make sure is basically the names match of the fields. Now, if somebody would reorganize the database and would shuffle in the database the names of the fields, i.e. the names of the columns around, the whole thing would still work. If this is the complete number of fields in the correct order, then I could leave all of this out. Yeah? No, let's try again. There seems to be a problem. So when I try to write with the pen, the lines go somewhere else. Okay. Let's go back to the laser pointer then. Okay, you could leave all of those field names out, as long as you got the correct values. But in reality, you might remember when we create a table, we often have an auto increment field. Yeah, we often ask the table to take care of the key for us and to automatically assign the next available key. If the first field is this auto increment field, what we can do is, because we don't hand over the number for the key when we create a new record, we just hand over an empty value. Yeah? We open the quotes, we close them again, we hand that all over. But usually it's advisable we spell out the fields. That way, if things are reorganized, if new fields are being added, it will still all work. Okay, how does it work? First, we show the user some sort of HTML form. And we ask the user to fill the form in. And yeah, we've all done that before. You had the form where you ask the computer to enter, you had the form where you ask the user to enter a date. Yeah, so we've got a similar form like that, but this time we ask the user basically to fill in the information for the new record we want to put into the database. So the user fills in the form, the user will press the submit button, the whole thing will be handed over to our PHP code. Our PHP code will take whatever the user entered and will use the insert into command to put it into the database. And the database then usually tells us, yes, this was working fine, or our database might tell us there was some sort of issue, this didn't work out. And then we can use this confirmation and we could send a new page to our user. For example, great, we have inserted your record into the database. Or we could write, sorry, there was a problem. Yeah, whatever fits best in that situation. So what do we need to know when we want to store values in a database? It's more or less the same as when we want to retrieve information from a database. We need to know the address of the database server. because we want to send our requests there. And we need to prove that we got permission to do this. So we need a username and a password to log on to the database. And usually the database itself also has a name. In reality, in a commercial environment, your username might have access to many different databases. In our case, you only have access to one database. But it doesn't really matter, because in your database you can have as many tables as you want. And in the past we looked at PHP MyAdmin. So if you want to create a table, for example the table for your main assignment, you can create this table in PHP MyAdmin. Exactly the same way as you created this exchange state table last time we had a workshop. Okay, so we want to add information to a table. We need the name of the table, the name of the fields. We need to kind of know what field types they are, because some fields might only accept numbers, so no point in trying to put text into a field that is made for numbers. The system wouldn't like it. And of course we need to know the information about the records we want to insert. So I'm going to show you how the table looks like for our book example we looked at last time. This is our book example. I've got a field called ID. It's my primary key, and it's auto-increment. Auto-increment means the database will automatically hand out new numbers for each new book. Now there's no guarantee it works that way, but we usually can assume that the first book we enter will have the ID 1. And the second book we enter will usually have the ID 2. I say there's no guarantee, because usually the database doesn't make these kind of guarantees. So we can't rely on it. An example is, I had a book number 3. I deleted that book, and after I've deleted the book and I insert a new book, you could think the new book would probably get ID number 3 because that's available now, but in reality what the system would normally do is, we deleted book number 3, it usually will not use ID number 3 again, and the next book will still get ID number 4. But this is kind of stuff we can't rely on. All we need to know is we hand the thing over to the database, and the database will automatically assign an available ID. And in the end we don't care what the ID is, because we order a book from Amazon, it doesn't really matter what their internal ID for the book is. Okay, we've got a title. In this case this can be up to 200 characters long. We've got the name of an author that can be up to 200 characters long. We have a price, and I remember last time in the workshop some students entered a full stop instead of a comma here. When we create a type, a decimal type, we need to use the comma here. So what we are basically saying is the price has 2 digits after the decimal point and 8 digits before the decimal point. So if this is a really, really expensive book, so expensive that 8 digits is not enough to store the price of the book, then I've got a problem. But that's probably unlikely. If the book is £10.99, the 99 pence will be the 2 digits after the decimal point, and the £10 will use up 2 digits before the decimal point. And we then have a review of the book, which can be a very long text. Okay. So the ID value will be automatically generated. The values for the other fields, we insert them. So we need 2 scripts. We need an HTML form, and we need the PHP script to take the information from the form and send it to the database. I'll just go back to the previous slide and to the previous slide again. So we need to create this HTML form and this PHP script. The form, we are basically asking you know, in this example, it's for a book. We are asking, you know, what's the name of the author? What's the name of the title? What's the price of the book? What's the review of the book? So we create a form like that. The user sends it off. It will be handed over to the PHP script. And the PHP script will take the information from the form and will put it in the database. Okay, let's go back to the current slide. And next slide. Okay, simple example. Yeah. Line 1 is just I start HTML and the title. Line 3, I'm starting a form. Am I using post or get? Post. Yeah, very good. And when I send this form off, which file will I send the form to? Yeah, I'll send it to insert example2.php. Here's the submit button. When people press the submit button, all the user entered will be sent to this address. Okay, and we ask for the book title. This is the internal name. So it will be stored in $_post title. We ask for the author, $_post author. We ask for the price and for the review. Okay, so this, if you remember, can you read this or do I need to make it a bit bigger? Fine? Okay, yeah, so this is from last time, yeah? So here's a list of all the books in the database at the moment. Okay. Now I want to insert a new record. So what's the title of our book? Make something up. Harry Potter. Harry Potter. Anything else? Or just Harry Potter? Harry Potter. Good enough. Author? Okay, price? £1. That's cheap. Review? A good book to read. Okay, a good book to read. Okay. So I sent this off. Record inserted. Let's have a look. And here it is. Yeah. So the record we entered just now has been added to the database. So what happened behind the scenes? Yeah, so this is the form that you... No, go away. This is the form, pretty obvious. And now, here's the code that talks to the database. Yeah. So first, I connect to the database. Obviously, you got to replace this with your own information. It might, you know, because you will be accessing the database from many different PHP files, it might be worth putting all this information in a separate file that you can just include. You could do something like $host is, whatever the host is, $username is, $password is. You can put it all in a PHP file and you can include it. That saves you having to write the same code everywhere. Because your username and password wouldn't change, it doesn't really matter. But in a real environment, people would probably want to store this in a separate file. Because if their password ever changed, they have one point where they can change the password for the whole site instead of having to change it in 20 different locations. Okay. So I do it the lazy way here. I just write insert into books values, and I don't specify the names of the columns, which means, it all needs to match exactly. And this looks like a double quote. It's actually two single quotes. Yeah, I'm opening the single quote and I close it immediately. This is for the ID field. Now, I can't tell the database what the ID of the book should be. The database has to manage that. But I know there is some sort of field there. So I basically acknowledge there's a field there, but I don't hand over a value. So this is what's going on here. So ID, title, author, price, the view. Now if I were to ever redesign the database and add a new field, for example publisher, in the database, then this will probably stop working. Yeah, because the names of the columns are not really right anymore. So it's usually better if we spell out the fields. Okay, so here's my command. I just store it in a separate file. I could write this all in one big line, but it gets messier and messier. So I'm separating it a bit. So line 5 is more or less mainly SQL code. Line 7, I send it off. I send the SQL code to the database connection we created earlier. And now I'm basically checking, did it work? Yeah. If it didn't work, the result will be empty. So if there's no result, I'll give her some sort of other message. Die. Basically I'll print it and then I leave the program and I write invalid query and I write whatever the error was, which could be wrong password or something like that, or this table doesn't exist, something along those lines. But if it worked, I write record inserted. Would you like to view the full list of books? And I go to that link that gives me the full list of books. And this is another link that links back to the form if I want to insert another book. Just some little, structure here to move forward. Okay. Anybody happy so far? Yeah? Okay. Problem is, this doesn't always work. Yeah. Look at how I coded the whole thing. Imagine the title has an apostrophe inside. Then we will be replacing $post title with a text with the apostrophe. Example here, it's not rocket science. Yeah, here there's an apostrophe. Yeah. So if I would replace the title of the book is it's not rocket science. If I put that in now, IT apostrophe, then my system will think the apostrophe after the T is the apostrophe to end this quote. And then it will think not rocket science is part of the command. I'll get an error message. It will not work. Yeah. So if you do it this way, it's very dangerous. If somebody wanted to put an SQL command into your table, they could use this kind of problem to basically smuggle another SQL command into your code. They just put a quote in to leave that kind of line, and they can then put their own quote in, which could, for example, show them the content of all the table. So very dangerous. Let's try it out. Okay. So I need a book title with an apostrophe. Can anybody think of anything? Otherwise I do that. It's not rocket science. Let's try it. It's not rocket science. Author is me. Price is $12.99. Good book. Let's try to send it off. Invalid query. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Near It's not rocket science, yeah? So the system thought this apostrophe is the end of a field, and now it expected a comma in the next field. Yeah? But now the whole thing doesn't make sense anymore. So doesn't work, and an easy way for anybody who wants to do malicious things to smuggle code in. Solution is we need to escape certain characters. So in computer science we've got often the situation that a character, like a comma, like an apostrophe, has a certain meaning. And usually when we use that apostrophe, that comma, we want to use that special meaning. But sometimes we just want to use that symbol without giving it that special meaning. And when we do that, we need to escape this character. And in most systems, in most circumstances, escaping a character just involves putting a backslash first. There are also certain characters like \n, for example, that stands for new line. So we could now basically go through the input line, character by character, and check, and if there's any character that needs a backslash, we do it manually. Or we can use the function called mysqli, the escape string, to just let the system do it for you. There are even better ways of preparing and binding SQL statements, but they're more complicated. And in the end, you're business students, you're not computer science students, so we don't look at those more complicated ways. But mysqli, the escape string, will basically look at the code, for example here, post title, and if there's an apostrophe in there, it will automatically mask it. It will automatically escape it. So this is the same type of code, but what do? I use this mysqli, the escape string command. I hand over the text I want to send to the database, and I hand over the connection to the database, because different databases would actually need different things doing to the string. Yeah. So I basically send the whole post titles to this function. So here's the input. This function will do something, and here's the output. So $title will now contain the same information, but all the characters that needed something doing to it, they've been made safe to some extent. I do that for all the input I got from the user, and now I can send it to the database. This is especially important because we hand this over to the whole wild world. The user could enter anything they want into that box. We've got no idea what the user hands over and wants to put into the database. And if they are naughty, they might want to put some naughty code in there that does things we don't want to happen. If you handle internal strings that you generated yourself within the program, maybe there's less of a need to be that careful. But because this is coming from the outside world, it could contain anything. We basically want to filter it a bit. And now we send the whole thing to the database, and hopefully it should work now. So let's have a look. This is now escaped. So hopefully it works now. Yeah, and this time it worked. So I see some of you try to enter their own records while we have the class. Was it you? Yeah, I thought so. You're typing away there. So so this is the book I just entered. Yeah? And this is probably some of you trying the code out without filling anything in. Some of you just tried it out during the class and just pressed enter. Yeah, this was you, but yeah. The important point here is, look, it works. Okay, querying a database. So now we know how to put information into the database. And last time we looked at how to get one record or all the records out. But sometimes we want specific books. Let's say I want all the J.K. Rowling books. I can query the database. I can ask the database a question. How does that work? We just amend our query, and instead of just writing select star from books, we can write where. For example, where author is J.K. Rowling, or where price is $9.99, or because it's a price, I can say I want all the books that cost less than £10. Where price less than 10. Or I can say I want all the books where the price is more than £20. Where price greater than 20. Yeah. And for your big assignment, for the placement opportunities, maybe you put the salary in the table. It's up to you how you decide what kind of values to store. So for the assignment, we have this database of placements for students who go into a company for a year. Maybe there's a student who says, I only want to see placements where they pay more than £15,000. Then they can write where placements greater than 15,000. So what kind of things can we ask? Here, example, where price is less than a specific value. Where author like. That's a good example. Maybe I only know, maybe I know it's J.K. Rowling, but I don't know how did they actually write J.K. in the database. Did they write J.K. or did they write J.K. without the dots? So I maybe want to just write Rowling or Rowling, not sure how to pronounce it. And if I do that, I want to get all the authors that contain Rowling in the name. So I've got like, and I've got the percentage sign here, and that makes sure if there's some other strings before or after, we are fine with that. Another typical thing is when people search in a search box, out of laziness or out of convenience, people just type everything lowercase. But in the database, actually the surname is probably spelled with an uppercase first character. So by using like and by using the percentage signs here, we make sure we ignore whether it's upper lowercase, and if there's something before or after, we are also fine with that. So here's an example of a new search form. Now I can search the book database. Very simple. I can say price higher than, price lower than, title or author. Should we try this? I spelled it lowercase. I didn't type JK, but it still picked it up. Or here I want all the books. Let's send this rolling off again. So this book costs £1. But now I say I only want the books that cost more than £10. So they shouldn't list this £1 book, and ta-da, they don't list the £1 book anymore. Or here, the Bottle and Morgan is £35. Now I say I want everything less than £10. The Badal and Morgan is not here anymore. Okay. So remember, you can always use PHP MyAdmin to check and modify your tables. Yeah, my PHP MyAdmin, we used it last time. I suggest you try first creating a book table in PHP MyAdmin. And once you're sure you can do that well, you can try to think how should the table for the big assignment look like. Yeah. Create a script that inserts records, create a search form. Yeah. For the assignment you need a new table, so at some stage you're gonna have to do that. The next handout is already on Blackboard in case you want to work ahead. We've got 5 minutes left. Do you want me to start the next handout, or do you want to leave that at this stage for now and we start the next handout next week? Okay, everybody's closing their laptop lids, so I assume you don't want to start the new handout. So please remember, so today's the deadline for the previous assignment. But if you haven't done so yet, please remember to book a Viva with me. But of course, if you're busy today working on the current assignment, that's perfectly fine. You can book your Viva with me next week. And if you haven't booked it next week, then I will assign a slot and a time for you. Okay, thank you.